So today we're going to be making a baseball cap cake, and for that you could use just about any size cake that you'd like. For this I'm going to use a 7-inch cake, and we're going to use 3 layers. So I'm going to set it on my board. To make sure that the cake is even, we're going to use a serrated knife, and we're just going to even our cake out. And then we're going to give it a little icing. And that's going to hold the layers together. And then we're going to add our second layer. And we're going to push it down just a little bit so it holds. And we're going to cut the second layer. And we'll add some more icing to this as well. And then we'll add our final layer, push it down just a little bit, and we'll cut this as well, just to even it off on the top. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to give it just a crumb coat, and what this does is it'll help seal the cake, and it'll also help when you give it its final icing on the top. And we don't have to worry that this isn't so neat, because when we do our baseball cap, we're gonna carve it out a little bit just to give it a round shape. And this is gonna hold our cake, and we're gonna set this in the refrigerator for maybe about half an hour, 45 minutes or so, so that it can set, and then we will carve out our baseball cap. We're going to make our baseball cap cake, and for this I've already pre-layered our cake, and it's been in the refrigerator cooling so we can carve it out. I'm gonna round it out just a little bit on the top. You want to go in maybe about a ½ inch or so, and just cut it around the same size all the way, just to give it a nice round top. Off, and then we'll just continue to round it out. I wanted to try to get this size as close as to a life size baseball cap, slightly a little bigger, but that's fine. Alright, and that should about do it. Gotten the excess crumbs off of here. We just want to add a little more buttercream, and then we'll set it back in the fridge while I prepare the fondant. Right, and we just want to smoothen that off a little bit. And we'll set this in the fridge for a couple of minutes while I prepare the fondant. I put some cornstarch and sugar on our table, and we're gonna roll out our fondant. You always want to make sure when you're using colored fondant, unless the color needs to be dark, I would probably use ready-made colored fondant. If it's a light color, you know, then it'll work out pretty well. You can do it the day before, wrap it in plastic as I did, and you should be fine the next day. And we're gonna roll it out so that we can get a nice covering on our baseball cap. So this should be good enough to cover our baseball cap. We'll get it from the refrigerator and we'll cover our baseball cap. We've taken our baseball cap out of the refrigerator and now we're ready to cover it with fondant. I'm gonna measure just to make sure I've rolled it out big enough. And I'm gonna need about 13 inches on that. And it looks like we have enough. I'm gonna use my roller to apply my fondant. And you just want to make sure that it's set right in the center so that both sides are covered. Just want to give it a little stretch. And we'll take our smoother and we'll give it a nice round out. Now you can decorate your baseball cap based on anything you'd like. I'm gonna put our baseball boy's name on it for today. I'm just gonna smooth it out. And we'll sink in our edge here so that we can cut it out. We'll use our knife cutter and cut it right here on the seam. We'll take away this excess fondant. Here we have the beginning of our baseball cap cake, and now we're gonna put on the rest of the decorations and we'll be done. Now we've covered our baseball cap cake with some nice blue fondant. We're gonna finish it off by giving it some decorations. Now you can decorate your baseball cap any way you'd like. I'm gonna make some lines across the baseball cap. So I'm gonna start at the center and go straight across. And I'm gonna use this tool. I'm gonna try to get it right in the center. And I'm gonna impression it right across the middle. And then I'm gonna take this tool that has just a little ribboning and I'm gonna go over it so I can give it a little pattern. And then I'm gonna do another line towards the back and 2 more lines down the front. This way we'll leave a little room in the front so we can add a name. Then I'm gonna go over it with this. And now what we want to do is create a little ball for the top. So we're just going to take a little blue fondant. I'm going to give it a little roll. And you can just roll it into a ball right in the palm of your hands. And then you're just going to press it in. Round it out just a little bit. And that's going to be the center. And you're just going to add a little water. And we'll just apply that. And that's going to be the center of our baseball cap. So we'll finish it up by giving it a name on the front and a nice brim on the bottom. We've covered our baseball cap with some blue fondant. We've given it some decorations along the side and we've added a nice little button on the top. So now what we want to do is we want to give it a band on the bottom, give it a nice little brim, and then we're going to put a name on the front of it. For that, I'm going to roll out a piece of fondant. I put a little extra cornstarch and sugar in it. That helps to kind of stiffen it up a little bit so we can make our brim. All right, so you want to roll that out. You want to kind of leave this kind of thick because we're going to make a brim out of it. So what you want to do is you want to try to cut one side of it straight, and we're going to put it up against the front of here just so we can kind of get a measurement of how big we want our brim. Now I'd like it to go from this line to this line, so we can actually just put it up and then we can use this as a guide to kind of cut out a little brim. I'll mark it out first. And then we'll bring it around. And let's see how that works. Then we'll take our knife and we'll cut it out. Okay, so now that we've cut that out, we'll even it out as we put it on there so we can make sure that it's nice and even. Now what you want to try to do for this side is just mark it out just a little bit, round it out so that it fits right into the cap. Hopefully this will fit. And just make sure that it's nice and even. Right. And once that's good enough for you, what you can actually do to try to raise your brim just a little bit, you can just take a piece of foil and fold it up. And then you can actually just rest the brim on top of it, just so it can give it a little bit of height. But for today's purpose, I'm just going to leave it off and I'm going to put it flat on the board. Now what you can do is you can take your decorating tool and you can just score some lines around it. So we're maybe going to give it 2 lines. And we're going to try to keep it as even as possible. And then we'll do one more. Alright, and then what I want to do is just make a small band that's going to go around the bottom. I'll use the remainder of the blue fondant. And we'll roll it into a little sausage so we can get a long piece out of it. And we'll use our cutter. I'm going to leave it closed because I don't want it that thick. And then I'm going to just take a little water and I'm just going to go around the bottom so that it can stick. And I'm just going to take one of the longest ones. We're just going to go around the bottom. And you can just push it in with your hand. And it can end right where the crease is in the back. All right, our hat is almost done. We just need to add a name to it. We've covered our baseball cap with fondant. We've given it some decorations, a button and a brim, and now we're gonna give it a name. In this case, the birthday boy's name is Tom, so we're gonna cut out some letters. And for that, there's this cool little set of alphabet letters. You can purchase that as well at any cake decorating or craft store. And We're gonna pull out the letters T-O-M. Now the trick to doing this without them sticking to the cutters is to just add a little bit of cornstarch and confection powder. And we're gonna just dip it in there every time you do a letter. That helps to release it. Otherwise it would stick. And there we have our letters. Then you can just add just a little bit of water to the back just to stick it on. We're gonna do a T, the letter O. Again, just a little bit of water. Too much water is gonna make the colors of your fondant run, especially when you're doing, you know, black on white. All right, there you have it. A baseball cap for Tom. Happy birthday.